Yep. Clap your flippers together. It's the California sea lion and the harbor seal. They belong to a group of mammals called pinnipeds. This also includes walruses. Notice how this sea lion has little ear-like tuft. That's one surefire way to tell it apart from a true seal. And she used her front flippers to push herself through the water, and their rear flippers like rudders for steering, whereas with true seals, it's vice versa. Now this sea lion is a male because, much like actual male lions, male sea lions have manes. Of all the mammals, sea lions are the only ones that have milk that lacks lactose. In the wild, they mainly feed on fish, crustaceans. Now when seals move on the land, they're clumsy and move more like caterpillars, whereas with sea lions, they use their front and hind flippers to hop on the land. Oh boy, I'm seeing red, because this is the red-ruffed lemur. The name lemur comes from the Latin word that means ghost, referring to their calls at night. Lemurs are in a more primitive group of primates called prosimians. This also includes lorises, tarsiers, and galagos. In the wild, lemurs mainly eat gum, resins, and fruit, and they tend to live in large groups, and in some species, these groups are matriarchal. When lemurs first arrived on the island of Madagascar, all species descended from a single ancestor known as proto-lemur. The red-ruffed lemur is critically endangered mainly by habitat loss, but they are also poached for the bushmeat trade. They have as many as 12 different kinds of calls so as to communicate with each other. Now this is no laughing matter, but now we see the laughing kookaburra, native to the forests of Australia. The kookaburra is a relative of the kingfisher, and in the wild it mainly eats snakes and lizards and small mammals. The laugh that they are most well known for is actually a way to mark their territory. As they get older, most birds fly away from the nest to live their own lives, but juvenile kookaburras will actually hang around to help their parents raise their younger siblings. And kookaburras can be so tame around people that they actually snatch food right out of people's hands. Alright, I'm excited several times to see this animal, because this is the serval, a wild cat native to the savannas of sub-Saharan Africa. In the wild, it mainly eats birds, but also feeds on small mammals such as mice. Part of the reason why servals are such great hunters is because, well, one, their large ears. It helps them perfectly listen for signs of prey. And on top of that, servals are very good jumpers. They can jump several feet high into the air to catch a flying bird, much like its cousin, the caracal. Wow. And that would send even the highest flying of songbirds a run for its money, and, well, for its life for that matter.
And it can take down birds 3 times its size.
I see.
Yep. I think that was a cat.
Well, this would be any rodentophobiast's worst nightmare, because this is the capybara, the world's largest rodent. It can be about the size of a baby hippo. The capybara is native to the wetlands and rainforests of South America, in the wild they mainly feed on grass and aquatic plants. And, well, we all love to relax in cool water on a hot day. Well, so does the capybara, because they'll lay for hours in the cool water.
Un skunk de Pew!
It's the pair of the striped skunk. They're basically native throughout the habitats of Canada and the United States. Now, the skunk actually does give a few warnings before spraying. Its first warning is to stamp its front feet and raise its tail. But should all else fail, that's when it sprays. It can burn your skin, and if it hits your eyes, it causes temporary blindness. Contrary to popular belief, the cure for this spray is in fact not tomato juice, but what you really need is a quart of hydrogen peroxide, a tablespoon of baking soda, and a few teaspoons of dishwashing liquid. But skunks are omnivores. In the wild, they mainly eat berries, nuts, small mammals, and insects. Their strong spray protect them from almost every predator except for owls. While they're not endangered, they can become casualties of collisions with vehicles because they prefer to stand their ground rather than run away. Here, here we see a whole family of sandcats, native to the deserts of northern Africa and the Middle East. Sandcats live in some of the hottest deserts, so they've developed a covering of wiry black fur on the bottoms of their paws, just like how we do sandals at the beach. In the wild, they mainly eat small mammals and reptiles such as lizards. They were once nearly extinct in the wild, but thanks to conservation efforts such as cloning with domestic cats, the species has since recovered. This is the blue and gold macaw, one of many amazing macaw species found in Central and South America. They tend to live in large flocks called pandemoniums. In the wild, they mainly eat fruit and nuts, and their powerful beaks are able to crack open even the toughest of nuts. So, safety first. Keep your fingers and toes clear of macaw beaks at all times. They're very popular as pets because they're able to mimic human speed. And when they get excited, the white area in its face changes to a pink color. And after eating a bit of a nut, they eat clay to help aid their digestion and break down any potential toxins. All macaw species, including the blue and gold, are threatened mainly by habitat loss and capture for the pet trade. Batman, try bat fox because this is the bat-eared fox, native to the plains and deserts of sub-Saharan Africa. They're mainly nocturnal, and they get their name from their large bat-like ears, which they use to help pinpoint the location of their prey. In the wild, they mainly feed on insects such as termites. And foxes are among the best parents in the animal kingdom because both mom and dad work together to raise the kids. Right here we see a pair of trumpeter swan, or Cygnus buccinator. They are among the largest of the waterfowl of North America and a prime example of wildlife conservation success. They were nearly wiped out due to habitat loss, hunting, and collisions with power lines, But thanks to rigorous conservation efforts, the species has since recovered. In the wild, they are mainly herbivorous, although the young may eat certain types of small crustaceans or frogs. And the trumpeter swan gets its name from the loud bugle call it makes to attract the mate. And the trumpeter swan has one of the biggest wingspans of all waterfowl. Here we see the gray wolf, the most widespread carnivore in the Americas. In addition to North America, they can also be found in Europe and Northern Asia. The wolf is the largest canid in the world, and beyond that, the ancestor of domestic dogs. Wolves are highly social creatures that live in large family packs that can range in size from 6 to even 30 members. In the wild, wolves hunt animals such as moose, caribou, and elk. And after a successful hunt, all the members of the pack help care for the pups. Here we see the moose, or Alces alces. Moose are the largest deer in the world and can be found across much of the United States and a lot of Canada, mainly living in forests. In the wild, they eat leaves, twigs, and they're even able to swim down deep to get aquatic plants. They have a distinctive flap on their necks called a dewlap. Unlike most deer, which live in herds, moose live alone, except for mothers with calves. However, in the far east of Russia, moose are often called elk. And during the rut, males will give out a low bellow, which will both attract a female, like this, or ward off rival males. In fact, during the rut, bulls can get so aggressive that they even attack trains, likely mistaking the whistle for the call of a rival bull. Here we see the caribou, or Rangifer tarindus. There are multiple different subspecies of caribou living throughout their range, some in forests, but many on the Arctic tundra. Unlike most deer, both male and female caribou have antlers. Caribou are well known for undergoing large migrations across the tundra, both in search of greener pastures and to get away from biting flies. And in many parts of the world, caribou have been domesticated into a form known as reindeer, used for a multitude of purposes, such as being raised for their milk, and yes, to pull sleighs. In fact, the very first animals to arrive here at the Columbus Zoo were in fact reindeer. Here we see the American black bear. Now I know what you're thinking, but that's a brown bear. Well, there are actually multiple color phases that occur throughout a black bear's range. This one happens to be the cinnamon. It's not a brown bear because notice that it does not have a big hump of shoulder or muscle on its shoulders, which would be a characteristic of brown bear. But like the brown bear, the black bear is an omnivore, feeding on berries, insects, honey, carrion, and fish. Every year during the summer and the fall, they build up layers of fat for their hibernation. And a bear's sense of smell is 10 times that of a bloodhound. Unlike brown bears, which have claws more designed for digging, a black bear's claws are more designed for climbing. Unlike most bears, whose numbers are dwindling, the American black bear's numbers are actually on the rise, and there's a total of 600,000 living in the wild, thus making the American black bear the most numerous bear in the world. Here we see the cougar. Okay, call it puma, mountain lion, whatever, same animal. Anyway, the cougar is the second largest cat in the world in the Western Hemisphere, behind the jaguar. But unlike the jaguar, cougars can't roar, but they can purr, like a house cat. In the wild, they hunt prey of many sizes, from small ones such as raccoons and rabbits, to larger ones like deer. And cougars are incredibly good jumpers. When vertically, they can jump up to 15 feet into the air. But just like with African lions, when cougar cubs are born, they are born with brown spots that act as camouflage. Cougars were once widespread throughout North America, but hunting and human settlement has reduced them to just the western states and Canada. This may not be the Marvel superhero, but here's the real life Wolverine, or Gulo Gulo. Wolverines are mustelids, the same family as weasels, ferrets, stoats, badgers, and otters. They've often been called skunk bears because they have the same ferocity as a bear, and like the skunks, they spray foul-smelling musk, although in this case it's more to mark their territory. In the wild, they eat large mammals such as moose and caribou, and they eat carrion. They've even been known to drive bears away from carcasses, and wolverines have among the strongest bite forces in the animal kingdom. They're even able to bite through meat that's frozen solid. So that's one way of taking advantage of nature's freezer. In fact, the Wolverine's Latin name, Gulo Gulo, comes from the fact that they used to be called the Gluttons.
I don't know.
I've never seen a Wolverine in locomotion and in person before.
Well, that's yet another.
All rise for our country's national bird, the bald eagle, or Haliitis leucocephalus. The bald eagle's name actually comes from the Old English word piebald, which basically refers to any animal that's black and white. Case in point, the bald eagle's white head. Bald eagles belong to a family of eagles known as fish eagles and sea eagles, and the mainstay of their diet is fish, hence why they like to nest in areas near water. The bald eagle builds the biggest nests of any bird. Some are even used for generations, and as is the case with many birds, bald eagle pairs work together to raise the eaglets. The bald eagle is a prime example of wildlife conservation success. They were almost wiped out mainly due to pesticides such as DDT. But, thanks to rigorous conservation efforts such as the ban on DDT, the species has since recovered and has been removed from the endangered species list. For the most part, it's forbidden to keep bald eagles in U.S. zoos, with the exception of rescues. Say hello to Lee, the polar bear. The polar bear is the largest land carnivore in the world, with this male weighing up to 12,000 pounds. Although the bear's fur looks white, it's actually colorless. Its fur only looks white when the light from the sun hits it. The polar bear's skin is actually black, which helps it to absorb the heat from the sun. In the wild, polar bears eat seals, but they will also eat caribou and whale carcasses. In fact, they're the only bear that can be considered purely carnivorous because little to no vegetation grows in the Arctic. Unlike black bears and brown bears, polar bears don't hibernate, but females do dig maternity dens in which to have their cubs. Polar bears use a wide variety of tactics to catch seals, such as pounding through a seal's birthing lair, or simply sitting by a seal's breathing hole and waiting for it to come up for air. Sometimes they even ambush from the water. Nonetheless, 9 out of 10 polar bear hunts end in failure. The polar bear is currently listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List due to climate change and oil pollution. Brown bear, what do you see? I see the Alaskan brown bear. Brown bears are the most widespread carnivores in the world, living in North America, Europe, and Northern Asia. This is the coastal brown bear, one of 3 subspecies found in North America, the other 2 being the Kodiak brown bear and the grizzly bear. Despite being classified as carnivores, brown bears are in fact omnivores. They feed on berries, roots, and insects, honey, and fish. Their paws can be about as big as a man's face. They're perfectly built for digging up large roots, but the main way they find their food is by their sense of smell. A bear's sense of smell is 10 times that of a bloodhound. During the summer and fall, they eat a lot so as to build up layers of fat for their hibernation.
Big boys.
And considering that bears are only this big when they're born, the size of a jelly bean, that's saying something. While not really endangered, the brown bears of North America are threatened by their growing familiarity with tourists. So, when you're camping in bear country, store your garbage carefully. Never feed bears. Here we see the Arctic fox, the northernmost species of fox. Arctic foxes often mate for life in the wild, and they can have very large litters of kits. In the wild, they mainly eat lemmings, Arctic hares, birds, and eggs. But the one thing that the Arctic fox is most well known for is its color changing. In the summer, its fur is a dark brown, whereas in the winter, it turns white so as to blend in with the snow and ice. And Arctic foxes will also follow polar bears around so as to try and obtain scraps. And when hunting for lemmings or voles, the foxes will often jump high into the air and try to successfully pounce on one, because they know that if they dig, it will make too much noise. And here we see the ostrich, the largest bird in the world. Some of these stand up to 8 feet tall. These ostriches are all females. The males are the ones with the famous black and white feathers. Although ostriches can't fly, they are very fast runners, reaching speeds of up to 45 miles per hour. But contrary to popular belief, ostriches don't really stick their heads in the sand when scared or threatened. Ostriches are omnivores. In the wild, they eat insects, grass, and seeds. They even swallow pebbles to help digest their food. And the ostrich lays the biggest eggs of any bird. The weight of one ostrich egg equals 2 dozen chicken eggs. Whenever Whenever ostriches are feeding, they often feed alongside other animals such as zebras and antelopes so as to warn each other of predators. It's a circle of life. Behold the lion, the king of beasts. The lion is the world's second largest cat, behind the Siberian tiger. Of all the world's cats, lions are the only ones that live in large family groups known as prides, made up of 1 or 2 males, like this guy, several lionesses like these 2, and their cubs. In the wild, lions hunt animals like antelope, zebra, wildebeest, and buffalo. In the pride, the lionesses are the ones that do most of the hunting. When lions hunt together, they catch 2 out of every 5 animals that they chase, whereas with lions hunting alone, they catch only 1 out of every 6 animals they chase. But after a successful hunt, the male gets to eat first because the protector demands the lion's share. But he pulls his own weight too, because male lions protect the pride from wanderer males. Lions sleep for up to 20 hours a day. A vast majority of their hunting is done at night because a lion's night vision is 7 times that of a human. A lion's mane grows darker as it grows older, and sometimes their manes can range in color from tawny to gold to even black. A lion's roar can be heard up to 5 miles away and is used to help keep in touch with other members of the pride and warn outsiders to stay away from the pride's territory. The reason why lions sleep so much is because they don't have very effective sweat glands. Lions are listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List, mainly due to habitat loss and both legal and illegal hunting. Lions once lived on every continent except for Australia and Antarctica, but nowadays the only places to find wild lions are the savannas of sub-Saharan Africa, and a small portion live in the Gir forest of India. But let's hope that the King of Beasts continues to retain his crown. In the circle of life. are reticulated and Maasai giraffe, the tallest land mammals in the world. Despite their great height, there are only 7 vertebrae in their necks. They just get their big necks by having bigger vertebrae than our own. In the wild, they eat leaves and vines and fruit, and they pluck the leaves with their long tongues, and their hairy lips protect them from the thorns. Giraffes give birth standing up, which means that the calf has a 5-foot fall to the ground. The name giraffe comes from the Arab word zarafa, which means the one that walks very fast. And there we see a herd of Thompson's gazelle, one of the most recognizable antelope in all of Africa. They are found solely on the savannas of Kenya and Tanzania, but they are incredibly fast runners, and when threatened by a predator, they will usually run in a zigzag pattern and can outmaneuver almost every predator except for the cheetah. Both male and female gazelles have horns, but the males mostly have larger horns due to their ritualistic fights. And they have scent glands behind their eyes, which they can use to mark territory. Here we see a family of cheetahs. Unlike leopards, cheetahs have black tear lines on the sides of their faces, which act like sunglasses, protecting their eyes from the hot African sun. Also, cheetahs can't roar, but they can purr, just like a house cat. And unlike all other cats, cheetahs can't retract their claws, thus they're used like cleats as they chase down their prey. In the wild, they hunt small to medium-sized antelope, hares, birds, and wild pigs. And they can reach speeds of up to 70 miles per hour. They're able to obtain such long distances because of their, as I've said, non-retractable claws, but also a flexible spine and powerful lungs. Despite this, however, cheetahs are not built for long distances, so if the chase lasts for more than a minute, they tire. Only half of all cheetah hunts end in success. Cheetahs are listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List, mainly due to habitat loss and a lack of genetic diversity, making them more vulnerable to disease. Right here, we see a troop of vervet monkeys. They are very common throughout sub-Saharan Africa, and, like most monkeys, they live in large troops with a strict hierarchy. In the wild, they're opportunistic feeders, feeding on fruit, eggs, leaves, and insects. Vervets are mainly found on savannas and in woodlands rather than in rainforests like many other African monkeys. Despite being listed as least concern, their numbers are dwindling mainly due to habitat loss and capture for laboratory experiments. Not to mention the fact that, unlike Asia's Hanuman langur, which is sacred, these monkeys are often viewed as vermin. Of course, like all social primates, vervet monkeys spend a lot of time grooming each other, keeps each other clean, and helps reinforce social bonds. Maybe we should try that at the next family reunion. You sit down in the chair and I run my finger through your hair. Here we see the warthog. The warthog obviously gets its name from the wart-like bumps on the side of its face, the purpose of which is not yet determined. Despite being very adept diggers, the warthog doesn't dig its own burrows. Rather, it uses abandoned aardvark dens, and it feeds mainly on grass and herbs, not mainly on grubs. Danger! Ha! I laugh in the face of danger. Right. Anywho, a duo of spotted hyenas, or Procuta procuta. Even though they resemble dogs and share a common ancestor, they're separated by millions of years of evolution. In fact, hyenas are actually more closely related to cats than they are to dogs. And even though they do scavenge, they are not strict scavengers. They are very efficient predators and can take down prey as big as zebra, and they can eat every part of the carcass, including bones, horns, and even teeth, because hyenas have among the strongest bite force in the animal kingdom. Spotted hyenas live in large clans that are matriarchal. Even the clan's highest-ranking male must submit to the lowest-ranking female. Well, that's my family for you. And when hyenas laugh, they more laugh when they're under attack, when they're frustrated. And that hyena's behavior with the boxes is somewhat similar to how they would be at a carcass. Wonder if they found a nice juicy bone in there. At one point, it was believed that hyenas were hermaphrodites, or animals of dual sex, because, well, I prefer to keep things PG on my channel, so you'll have to look it up for yourself.
Austin used to have a bill.
Yep, this is the tufted deer, native to the marshes of Eastern Asia. Like the muntjac, the tufted deer has tusks on the side of its mouth which are used as weapons. But, unlike many deer, the males of the tufted deer do not have antlers. In fact, tufted deer, along with musk deer and muntjacs, are considered to be the most primitive of all deer. In the wild, they mostly eat grasses and aquatic plants. And they sometimes gather in small herds, usually made up of females and fawns. And here we see the red-crowned crane, native to the forests and wetlands of many parts of Eastern Asia. Cranes have always played a big part in Asian mythology. For example, in Chinese mythology, it is said that every time a crane takes flight, a departed soul heads into the afterlife. In the wild, they mainly eat fish and frogs, but will sometimes eat small mammals. The red-crowned crane is the second rarest crane in the world, behind North America's whooping crane. Only 1,700 are left in the wild. Here, the pair of the silvery langur. Langurs are also called leaf monkeys because their diet mainly consists of leaves. They have specialized stomachs filled with protozoa and bacteria that help to break down the cellulose within the leaves of their diet, but they will also eat fruit. All langur species live in large family troops that some can be mixed gender, some are all bachelors, and some, like this, can be all females, and they're young. Sadly, many Asian monkeys, including the silvery langur, are endangered mainly due to habitat loss and poaching for their gallbladders, which are believed to have medicinal properties. But thankfully, many Asian cultures, such as the Hindus, hold monkeys as sacred. Here we see Varanus salvador, the water monitor. Hence the name, the water monitor lizard can hunt near both fresh and salt water, and it hunts basically anything that moves near the water. Small mammals, frogs, birds, you name it, it eats it. And they can stay submerged underwater for up to 30 minutes. Much Unlike with snakes, monitor lizards often flick their tongues in and out as their sense of smell. Although the water monitor lizard numbers in the wild are stable, they are threatened by poaching for their skins. And here is a pair of flying foxes. Some species can be among the biggest bats in the world. About a quarter of the world's mammal species are bats. Flying foxes live in the jungles of Southeast Asia, Indonesia, and Australia. Unlike the insect-eating bats, flying foxes don't rely on echolocation to find their food, but rather on their senses of sight and smell. They serve a useful function within the jungle because they both disperse seeds and they even act as pollinator when they lick nectar from the flowers. And here is the world's largest snake, the reticulated python. The largest of these snakes was about half the length of a bowling lane. In the wild, they eat small to medium-sized mammals, birds, and they can unhinge their jaws to swallow prey larger than them. In fact, if you wanted to eat as much as a python, you'd have to eat a whole watermelon, uncut, hands behind your back. Say hello to nature's original grumpy cat, the Pallas cat, native to the mountains and deserts of Central Asia. They were named after a German scientist named Peter Pallas. They have thick fur coats to insulate them from the cold. In the wild, they hunt small mammals and birds, and they usually take up residence within the burrows of other animals. The Pallas cat is threatened mainly due to poaching for its hide. Here we see the greater Indian rhinoceros, or Rhinoceros unicornis. The name rhinoceros comes from two Greek words meaning nose horn. The horn is made out of keratin, the same substance that makes human fingernails. Like the black rhinoceros, Indian rhinos have hook-shaped upper lips designed for browsing on leaves and tall grass. Rhinos have very poor eyesight, but it's more than made up for by great senses of hearing and smell. Rhinos can charge at speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. All species are threatened by poaching for their horns. Here we see a herd of Asian elephants, including this little cutie right here, Frankie. Asian elephants tend to be much smaller than African elephants, usually weighing in at about 11,000 pounds. Another distinct difference is that males, like this guy, are the only ones with tusks. The females don't have tusks. An elephant's trunk has over 100,000 muscle clusters in it. In the wild, they mainly eat grass, leaves, fruit, and tree bark, and they consume up to 300 pounds of food each day. The females, like Phoebe, who is Frankie's mother, often live in family groups that are led by the oldest female, and it's highly likely that Phoebe is the matriarch of this female herd, whereas males live alone, which means that some calves, like Frankie, in the wild would leave their natal herd upon reaching maturity. Unlike African elephants, Asian elephants have a long history of working for man. They've been used on farms, carry tourists on their backs, been used as weapons of war, even as a method of executing prisoners. And elephants are one of the few animals, other than humans, that can actually recognize themselves in the mirror. And right from birth, calves get plenty of care from every elephant in the herd. Some will even nurse calves that are not their own. And of course, some of the females around here will help Phoebe out with a little discipline. And some in the wild will even nurse calves that are not their own. Now Frankie will start to grow his tusks when he's about 2 years old. Despite its name, the red panda actually isn't related to the giant panda or the raccoon. It's in a family of its own, Ailuridae. But, like the giant panda, a bulk of its diet is made up of bamboo. It's not just in China, they can also be found in Nepal. Just as long as there's a steady diet of bamboo, then it'll be good to go. Sadly, the red panda is endangered mainly due to habitat loss. This is the Reeves muttjac, also known as the barking deer. The barking deer gets its name from its loud call that sounds like a Rottweiler barking. This is meant to be its alarm call if it ever spots predators. Barking deer are said to be among the most primitive deer species because they have only spikes for antlers and they have 2 tusks protruding from their mouths, very much like ancient species of deer. In the wild, they tend to live in small herds and they eat things like water plants and leaves. Here we see an entire herd of markhor, a wild species of mountain goat. The name markhor comes from the Persian word that means snake eater because of the male's spiraling horns. But like the ibex, it has specialized cloven hooves that help it grip to the mountains, which prevents it from slipping. In the wild, they mostly eat buds, shoots, and ground plants. And of course, the males have these magnificent horns so that they can use them in fights for mating rights. Sadly though, these magnificent horns may spell doom for the markhor, as they have become victims of poaching. It's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the fight. That's right, it's the world's largest cat, the Amur tiger, also known as the Siberian tiger. There are 6 different subspecies of tiger living in the world today, in addition to the Siberian. The others are the Bengal, the Malayan, the Indo-Chinese, the South China, and the Sumatran. The Amur tiger lives in much colder parts of Asia, most specifically the Amur-Ussuri region of Russia, and thus they have more pale fur than the other subspecies and thicker fur to help them keep warm. A tiger's stripe pattern is like human fingerprints. No two are exactly the same. And even without their fur, the tiger's skin has stripes. In the wild, tigers are masters at bringing down large prey. In the Amur-Ussuri region, they hunt deer, wild boar, even bears have been known to fall victim. However, since they are not built for speed, most of their hunts end in failure. Only 10% of all tiger hunts will end in success. But the amount of meat that a tiger can eat in one full sitting is the equivalent of a 10-year-old human eating 40 hamburgers. All tiger subspecies are endangered mainly due to habitat loss and poaching for their fur and bones. In fact, 3 are already extinct, those being the Caspian tiger, Bali tiger, and Javan tiger. Of parrots is called pandemonium. And beyond this screeching, African gray parrots can also mimic household sounds like babies crying, doorbells ringing, phones ringing, and dogs barking. This is the black and white colobus monkey, or Colobus direza. Like langurs, colobuses are often called leaf monkeys, since the bulk of their diet consists of leaves. When a colobus monkey baby is born, it's pure white, but as it gets older, that's when its fur turns black and white. Here are a pair of western lowland gorillas, the largest primates in the world. Some can weigh up to 606 pounds. All of the gorillas seen in U.S. zoos are western lowland gorillas. Only one zoo in Europe has eastern lowland gorillas. Gorillas are highly social creatures. They live in large family groups led by a single silverback male, case in point here, a few blackback males, several females, and their young. They're strict herbivores, feeding on fruit, leaves, shoots, and bamboo. Outside of an occasional sprinkling of termites, they never eat meat. Every night, gorillas build nests for themselves out of leaves and branches, and it usually takes a gorilla about 5 to 10 minutes to make a nest, and the young always share the nest with their mothers. And as for the silverback, it's not only the leader of the troop, but also its protector and responsible for keeping order. Yes. And gorillas can be far stronger than a human, but they are not the violent creatures that horror movies make them up to be. In fact, if anything, they're very gentle animals. Sadly, though, they are listed as critically endangered due to habitat loss, poaching, and the Ebola virus. What's new, pussycat? Take a look at African leopard. Leopards are the smallest of the big cats, but they are one of the most adaptable, as they can be found in a wide variety of habitats, from rainforests, grasslands, deserts, even boreal forests. Beyond that, they are opportunistic hunters. They feed on a wide variety of prey items such as small to medium-sized antelope, wild pigs, birds, and monkeys. And after a successful hunt, they always tow their kill up a tree so that they can be eaten out of reach of other predators. And a leopard can carry about 3 times its own body weight up a tree. Just like with jaguars, sometimes the rare genetic mutation occurs in leopards that makes them a black panther. Leopards do most of their hunting at night because their night vision is 10 times better than that of a human. Oh, thank you. Yep, and a leopard's spot pattern is exactly like a human's fingerprint. No two are exactly the same, and their spots make the perfect camouflage. This is the bonobo, aka the pygmy chimpanzee. Bonobos, along with chimpanzees, are our closest living relatives in the animal kingdom, sharing up to 98% of our genetic makeup. In fact, they're so closely related, they can donate blood with us. In the wild, they eat fruits, leaves, insects, honey, and small mammals. They're known to use a variety of tools, such as sticks to fish for ants and termites. Bonobos are endangered due to habitat loss and the Ebola virus.
Santa Sana, squash banana, wing yapana. Yup, it's Rafiki himself, the mandrill. Mandrills are the world's largest monkeys, and the males are the ones that sport the blue and red faces, while the females are more gray. In the wild, they mainly eat fruit, roots, eggs, and insects. And they also live in large family groups, though they're mostly dominated by the females, and all bachelor troops have never been recorded. Though contrary to popular belief, the mandrill's yawn is actually a sign of friendliness, not aggression.
Here we see the okapi. Now, although the okapi has markings on its legs that look like those of a zebra, its closest living relative is actually the giraffe. Like the giraffe, it eats leaves and vines and has to spread its legs out in order to get a drink of water. Unlike giraffes, okapi live alone, and females are bigger than males. The okapi is an endangered species mainly due to poaching for its hide. This is the Tasmanian devil. Yup, they're real. Hence their name. They're native to the island of Tasmania, and they're currently the largest carnivorous marsupial. In the wild, they eat antelopes, gazelles, stoats, goats, rhinoceroses. Nah, I'm just kidding. They eat carrion. The Tasmanian devil is an endangered species due to a disease that's passed through physical contact. Kind of like COVID-19, but much worse. Here we see the koala. The name koala comes from the Aborigine word meaning no drink, referring to the fact that koalas get all of their water from the eucalyptus leaves they eat. They're very fussy about their food. Koalas usually sleep for up to 20 hours a day, and most of their activity is done at night. Even though they're called koala bears, koalas are actually not bears. They're marsupials, just like kangaroos. And these are some males of the red kangaroo. Kangaroos live in large groups called mobs, where one male is the boss, or as Australians call it, the old man. Kangaroos are extremely good jumpers because they can hop up to 30 feet in a single jump. The males are red, the females are gray.
This is the southern hairy-nosed wombat, one of 3 wombat species native to Australia. Wombats are incredibly good diggers and dig extensive warrens and burrows for themselves to sleep in during the day. In the wild, they mainly feed on grass and herbs, so in one sense, they're kind of like a koala for the ground.
This is the binturong, native to the jungles of Southeast Asia. It's often incorrectly referred to as the bear cat because it's related to neither cat nor bear. In the wild, it mainly eats eggs, insects, small mammals, and fruit, and it's said to give off a thick, buttery scent that is said to smell like buttered popcorn. Binturongs are threatened by habitat loss and the illegal wildlife trade. They were never very numerous, and very little is known about them. Here we see the Matchtes tree kangaroo.
tree kangaroo mainly feeds on leaves and fruit and has a prehensile tail to help it grasp onto tree branches. The Manchester's tree kangaroo is endangered mainly due to habitat loss. Open wide because this is the tawny frogmouth, a bird native to the continent of Australia. Like owls, they are mainly nocturnal. In the wild, they mainly eat spiders, scorpions, and lizards, and caterpillars. They are named for the wide gape that they give when they open their mouth. They rely on camouflage to hide themselves from predators. The malted brown coloring and elongated body helps them blend in almost seamlessly with a tree. And here we see the orangutan. The name orangutan comes from the Malay word that means man of the forest. Unlike chimpanzees and gorillas, orangutans don't live in troops. And they're the largest tree-dwelling animals in the world. In the wild, they mainly eat fruit, such as wild durian, and leaves, flowers, and honey. There are 3 different species of orangutan: the Bornean orangutan, the Sumatran orangutan, and the Tapanuli orangutan. All 3 of which are endangered mainly due to habitat destruction, because the forests of Borneo and Sumatra are cleared away to make room for palm oil plantations. But when a mature male orangutan reaches maturity, it develops a throat pouch to amplify its calls and cheek pads on the sides of its face to make itself look more impressive to both females and rival males. Here we see a pair of Siamang gibbons. Gibbons belong to a family of apes known as the lesser apes, and all of them live in the jungles of Southeast Asia. They are strictly arboreal creatures and get around through the trees in a method known as brachiating. All gibbons sing in the early morning to mark their territory, but Siamang gibbons have a special throat sac that helps to amplify their call. In the wild, Siamangs mainly eat fruit, flowers, and buds, and they live in tight-knit family groups where both parents work together to raise the young. And the Siamang is the largest of all gibbons. All gibbons are threatened by habitat destruction and capture for the illegal pet trade. A troop of the white-handed gibbon, or Hylobates lar. Gibbons rarely come to the ground, and their arms are perfectly built for a movement through the trees known as brachiating. In the wild, they mainly eat fruit, flowers, and leaves. They tend to live in small groups, and they mark their territory in the early morning in a song. This is a female lar gibbon, while that is a male. And gibbons usually mate for life. Alright friends, let's hope that you brought a good suit of armor with you, because we're in the dragon's lair. Most specifically, the Komodo dragon, the world's largest lizard. It may not be able to breathe fire or fly, but the Komodo dragon is not without power, because its saliva contains a potent venom
that prevents its victim's blood from clotting. In the wild, it mainly eats wild goats, pigs, monkeys, and is even capable of bringing down water buffalo. Like all monitor lizards, and like all snakes, they flick their tongues in and out to use as their sense of smell. The Komodo dragon is listed as vulnerable due to poaching and rising sea levels. But if you ever catch a glimpse of Komodo dragons in any nature show, it can give you a perfect glimpse as to what life in the age of dinosaurs may have been like. And here we see the Asian small-clawed otter, one of many different species of river otters in the world. Otters have waterproof fur, and they use both their webbed feet and their tails to push themselves through the water. Their tails can be used like rudders for steering. In the wild, they mainly eat fish, crustaceans, and frogs. But they'll also eat amphibians and non-insect arthropods. Otters are well known for their playful behavior, but that kind of behavior is more often observed in zoos like this than in the wild. In the wild, they'd be more focused on survival. Small-clawed otters are threatened mainly by poaching for their pelts, habitat loss, and pollution.